everybody, welcome back to the farm. I'm Karen Gould, founder of Produce with a Purpose, and I'm here with our producer, Bex Francis, without whom none of this magic would be happening. So, gotta recognize and appreciate our producer, right? Please say hello in the comments. Let us know where you're from or how you found us. That would be awesome because, well, I just don't want to be a talking bobblehead all here by myself. Yeah, you know, just talking away in cyberspace. So, pop up in the comments. I think if you're on Facebook or also on YouTube, I think you can comment either way and we'll try to get right back to you. Which also means you are welcome to ask questions and we will try to get to them as well. Anyhow, our theme for today is the Mediterranean diet. A whole bunch of studies have come out over recent years that that indicate that we really should be sliding more towards a mostly plant diet. There was a really huge one called the China study. Did a very large sampling in China, and the researcher's conclusion really is that you ought to go vegan. Some folks questioned some of his data and some of his conclusions, but that was after sampling a ton of people, that's what he came to. Another study found these blue zones around the world where people were living to these really ripe old ages in excellent condition. Two of them are in the Mediterranean, by the way. And what they were finding was that people who were eating mostly vegetables, a lot of beans, whole grains, lots of fresh veggies, very little red meat, if any. Most of them didn't do any dairy to speak of. Those people were the ones living to a grand old age in a condition that would make it worthwhile, right? Because who wants to get to be 100 if you can't enjoy it? So some of those conclusions kind of rattled the doctors a little bit. But what they're comfortable with telling people is that the Mediterranean diet is going to give you a lot of those benefits. The good part is that it's also pretty much familiar flavors. You know, it's not scary, it doesn't sound radical. Most importantly to me is that it's not a diet. Because every diet is like this, it's deprivation, it's rules. I don't do well with rules, you know? You remember like the Long Beach diet and, hi Joe, how you doing? The Long Beach diet is obnoxious, and the Scarsdale diet, we went on it when I was a kid, and it was, you know, mostly toast and grapefruit, and in the end, the doctor who came up with it, Dr. Tarnower, his girlfriend killed him, and I'm not saying it's because, you know, a life of dry toast and grapefruit is going to make you mean and cranky. I was cranky, I didn't kill anybody, but you know. But anyway, I don't want you to have to depend on willpower, depend on some prescription, some formula, some pattern that you have to follow. I would really like it if we get to that place where you feel capable of going to gorgeous fresh foods happily, not just because you should, but because you're going to feel good on multiple levels, right? Because it's going to taste amazing. It's going to make your body feel like, hey, I got what I needed. You know, because it's when you don't feel like you got what you needed that you go back to the snacks in the cupboard, which are not helping. So, the other thing that I would like to avoid when we talk about any kind of eating pattern is avoiding that guilt and that feeling of failure, because nobody can live up to those things perfectly, and then you just feel like, oh, it's all my fault that I'm having problems. No, those things are a little bit crazy. They'll give you maybe, at best, 6 weeks, 6 months of actual results, and then it's going to plateau off, you're going to lose interest, and you're going to start all over again. So I would prefer to refer to what the folks in the Mediterranean do as their foodways. which is definitely not a diet in any sense of prescription. It's all about the culture, right? I want to get onto our slides and just, there we go. So what we want to learn from the culture, and what we want to keep it out of the realm of deprivation and portion control and all that, is that it's a culture that loves fresh food. I mean, really loves fresh food. I used to live in Barcelona, and I lived there for 8 years, and I was lucky to live right around the corner from one of the most incredibly gorgeous farmers markets in the entire world. It's called La Boqueria. In Catalan, they call it Plaça Sant Josep, and it's an entire city block. It's huge, and it has all the colors and the smells, and you just walk in there, and the fragrance of what's ripened in season is going to meet your nose, and your nose is going to tell your body, yes, this is what we need. Go get it, right? So they had everything in there. It's seasonal, it's local. For example, in the fall, kind of way at the back, because they weren't regular vendors, you would have these mushroom foragers who went out and got the kind of rare specialized ones up in the Pyrenees. And those things were expensive even then, but they were, hand picked in the mountains in the drizzling rains. So yeah, pay your price, and they're amazing. But where else would you go for that? That's not supermarket fare, right? So since we know that it's luscious and it gets good results, let's see what they're doing right. What do people in Mediterranean countries do differently than what we do here? First of all, the heartiest meal is at lunchtime. And it's traditionally a time to sit and chat and eat slowly, slow down. There's usually, in Spain anyway, there's usually like a wine mixed with soda water. And some people finish it off with a little tiny bit of cognac. But for the most part, 3/4 of what's on your plate is really vegetable stuff. They don't have like, a pound of beef on their plate, because that's just a bit much. But they also have something called the sobremesa, which is the chit-chat over the table, the human contact. And I think there's going to be some biological effects that nobody's measured yet. So then they have a lighter dinner, like tapas or salad or something like that. And they don't go to bed at 9 o'clock. They're like 2 in the morning in Spain, okay? They also have less stored food, more trips to the farmer's market, which is open 6 days a week. But you don't have these refrigerators the size of my bedroom. So they're not storing things. It's not all packaged stuff for the most part. You got to go to the bakery anyway. So there's a whole lot more food from scratch and less processed stuff, which is really important, in my personal opinion. I gotta say that I lived on the 6th floor of my building, and my neighbor was 80-something years old. She lived on the 5th floor. There was no elevator. So we'd be getting in with our groceries, run into each other on the 1st floor, and she'd say, "Oh, you go ahead," thinking she's going to be really slow. It's like, I think you're going to catch up to me around the 4th floor, because she'd been doing it her whole life, which is why she was really spunky at 80. But people walk, right? This is kind of a good thing as well. You walk to the market and you walk your groceries home. Another thing people in Mediterranean countries do a little differently than we do here is there's a whole lot more olive oil, garlic, lemon, legumes, fish, herbs, and nuts. I mean, that's really the majority of what goes on the plate. There's a little bit of dairy, mostly cheese and yogurt, which are those, fermented, the ones with enzymes in them to help you break it down. You don't see them drinking a big glass of milk or anything like that. And before nut milks were popular, In Spain, there's a kind of horchata. It's made from, what do they call them? Tiger nuts. Also in the Mediterranean area, it's very little red meat proportionally compared to what we put on a plate here. I will say that I don't want to overhype this, because people do eat, sausage and things like that, and chorizo, and, but it's not in the gross amounts, that we eat here with 3 patties on a burger. And it's offset by other things a little bit more, not just like 1 leaf of lettuce. So in the end, they have less saturated fats, more healthy fats that help reduce bad cholesterol. They definitely have less sugar and less of a sweet tooth for the crazy processed white sugar, white flour concoctions. And as I said, they do a whole lot more walking. And what you get from that is higher life expectancy, lower health expenditures, slightly lower cancer rates, depends on the cancer, lower heart disease rates, and protection against stroke and diabetes. I would like to be protected from all of those things myself. So, in case you're wondering if this is just old wives' tales, like folk medicine or something like that, no. The Natural Medicine Journal would tell us that the Mediterranean diet is associated with lower risk of several chronic diseases, including cardiovascular disease, neurodegenerative diseases, diabetes, and cancer, especially cancers of the breast and colon. The mechanisms responsible for these effects include reductions in inflammation, oxidative damage, metabolic syndrome, and weight. So I want to take a minute and talk about inflammation, because we hear about that being related to these other things, in particular cancer. And I'm like, how does that exactly work? Why does a little bit of inflammation help cancer cells proliferate? So I had to read up, obviously. What happens is your immune system, when you have some kind of damage, right, or irritation or acidification, your immune system is going to rush to the rescue, and it's going to create this healing environment around whatever is damaged. Eventually, those cells that are meant for healing are kind of back off as the otherwise healthy cells start to look normal again. But the cancer cells in that area are going to say, hey, check out this environment. I can make something out of this. And they continue to proliferate where that healing environment was, because now they're strong and healing, right? So, so they are in the place where your immune system was doing healing, but some of the cancer cells can stay there and proliferate after the repair job is done. Does that make sense? It was a thing that was stuck in my mind because I kept hearing it, inflammation related to cancer cells, but I think that makes a little more of a clarification for us. The Cancer Network tells us that there is data that indicates over 90% of type 2 diabetes, 80% of coronary disease, and 70% of stroke could be avoided by adopting choices like the traditional Mediterranean diet. And it's good that they say traditional, because honestly, people who live in big cities, Madrid and, Milano and these, they're living a pretty modern lifestyle like the rest of us, right? They're not living on grandma's farm. So we're talking about the traditional one, not your, 2 working parent household in a big city. The Cancer Network says a few clinical trials have also shown that Mediterranean diet reduces the risk of cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, postmenopausal breast cancer, and a meta-analysis of 12 studies suggested a strong association between greater adherence to the Mediterranean diet and a significant reduction in risk of overall mortality, cancer incidence and mortality, and incidence of Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. So we're seeing some fairly big voices speaking up in favor of this. Andrew Weil, who's, the famous naturopathic doctor, cited a study from the University of Athens. It's not recent, 2003. Researchers reported that people who ate a Mediterranean-style diet had a 33% reduction in the risk of death from heart disease and a cancer death rate that was 24% lower than the death rate for those who are eating other diets. So that's another pretty strong voice in favor of this diet. And like I say, it's certainly not the most radical diet. The Chris beats cancer, end of the spectrum is go completely vegan, go all in, do nothing but this. And it worked for him, and it can work for many, many people. You have to make your own choices, whether you're just, improving your diet, boosting your wellness, or if you're really going to, pursue diet as your main course of action. Depends on everybody's different types of illness and your personal choices and what can work for you. Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center also went through large prospective studies and found that the Mediterranean diet resulted in significant reductions for hip fracture. That one I didn't see coming, right? Risk of sudden cardiac death, gastric adenocarcinoma incidence, and modest reductions in colorectal cancer and overall reduction in cancer risk. And secondary analysis of this big, long meta-study suggests that a Mediterranean diet supplemented with extra virgin olive oil confers benefits in the prevention of breast cancer. That is a lot of ringing endorsement. So, why don't we get right over to making something? Let's do something with all the knowledge we've got right now. So when I lived in Spain, one of my dear neighbors was a gentleman named Nazario Luque. And let me move this, sorry, to make everybody seasick. One of my neighbors is a scandalous cartoonist and a Andalusian gentleman who loves his culture, and one of my favorite neighbors. Anyway, he was very serious about how gazpacho should be made. So I pay attention to his rules. But the essence of it is that you go by color. So we're going to put the white things in first, then we'll put the green things in, and then we're going to put in the red things last. So the first thing that I have here is going to be a piece of bakery bread, just a slice like this, day-old bread, and I've soaked it ahead of time to soften it up. So that's going to go in there, mush. I'm going to put in a good bit of garlic here, just like that. Now it's up to you how garlicky you can handle it. But what I did here was I smashed it. For folks who have trouble digesting garlic, particularly raw garlic, a lot of it is in the sulfuric compounds, the organic sulfur compounds that are in here. When you crush the garlic and let it oxidize a little bit, some of that effect is going to go away. So you decide how garlicky you like things. But that is our next one. Also, quick thing about garlic. When you're trying to break it up, don't try to struggle with your hands. Slide your knife right in between here and twist. Just a quick twist. They're going to break right loose there, okay? And then you're going to smash them. Let me move this. You're going to smash the garlic with the heel of the flat part of your knife, right? You want to put it flat side down on the board and just lean on it and smash it up. Right? You want to get that crushed bit that's going to crush those cell walls and let them oxidize a little bit. Okay? All right, so the next thing we're going to put in is our lovely minced onion. We're going to put a whole bunch of that in. Now, how did you cut all that without crying? Okay, so when I'm doing things with an audience in person, I'm not allowed to do this, but in order not to cry, what I do is I'll cut off the two ends of the onion and you rub it on your pulse, here and here, and then run the onion under ice cold water. Then go ahead and chop and you won't be all teary. Weird, huh? But it works. So our last thing here that we need is going to be a bit of salt. So all our white stuff. And you can actually give it a little bit of the water just to get it going. Because we're going to decide later how much we want to make it chunky or liquidy. So, put this on high. Excuse the noise. Chunky, chunky. All right, so that's got started. Next we're going to go green. I put in this beautiful chopped up green pepper. And then I'm going to put in some of the cucumber that I've prepped here. Just chopped up chunky. You know, you don't have to fuss. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be super fine because we're throwing it in the blender. So, all right, I'm going to save some from the other dish that I'm doing. And then the olive oil, which is also green. That's going in here. Good bit of that. Don't be shy. Okay. And then you may want to add another little bit of water to keep things moving. Just enough so things are actually going to get in there and mix. Right? Nice and chunky. Okay, so those guys are making friends now. And we can push things down a little bit, give it a little something something here. And then we're going to put in all this gorgeous tomato. Now, if your tomato is pink and not in season and kind of meh, you're going to have pink gazpacho that's kind of meh. You really got to make an effort and get the good stuff. If you have to go down to the farm stand, I would recommend it. So we're going to get all this gorgeous, run away. And get all this gorgeous tomato in here. Oh, as much as fits. And the red wine vinegar. So this lovely stuff is going in here. And it depends on your taste as well. I do everything by eyeball, as you know. Like a granny. Oh, I'm losing something here. All right, and we're going to pause it some. All good and red. Now, depends on whether you like, a smooth, homogeneous gazpacho or whether you like a salad in a bowl. But there we are. This is all we really need to do here. Probably going to give it a little bit more salt as we go, but that's going to be a question of your own taste bud. Like I say, if you don't love it, you will not repeat it. You'll do it one time and you won't be a fan, and it'll be on the should list and not on the wanna list. So then you do this, and here we are. We have a little bit of parsley for our garnish. We're just going to pop that on top. And now you have essentially dinner from a blender. You haven't heated up the kitchen. This is super refreshing. You can totally do this. Have you been able to do this at home? Is anybody kind of working along with us, I hope? Have you given it a taste? It's really refreshing, it's hydrating, and like I said, I mean, California is on fire here, and when it's not, it's 108 degrees. So rather than fire up our stove and get everything moving, we can make a big pitcher of this, good for lunch tomorrow. In fact, anything with garlic, you get more flavor the next time around. You know, you can let it sit for a little bit. And I generally recommend that. Just let it sit for a little bit so that all the flavors get in together and get to know each other a little bit. But then this is your beautiful, full of flavor, full of fragrance, and full of nutrition dinner for the, you know, for lunch or dinner or whatever you like. But it couldn't possibly be any easier. But just think of all the nutrients that are in here. We've got a ton of vitamin A from the peppers and from the tomatoes. There's lycopene, which fights breast cancer and prostate cancer. There's vitamin C in both the tomatoes and the peppers. And then we have all of the goodness of the onion and garlic, which includes antibacterial properties, antifungal, antiviral, anti-inflammatory properties. They help with blood pressure, circulation in general, gut health because they have some probiotic properties, and they support your immune system. So all that in a blender, right? And this is not very much dishwashing to do afterward either, because that's the part I truly hate. Alrighty, so I'm gonna move this over. All right, so let's go back and talk for a minute about the olive oil in here that we just popped in. Andrew Weil again, he says that investigators from Rutgers University in New Jersey and Hunter College in New York reported that oleocanthal, a compound in extra virgin olive oil, ruptures membranes of lysosomes, the structures within the cells where waste is stored, leading to the release of enzymes that cause cell death. And we're talking about cancer cell death. So just pop some. Garlic, according to the Livestrong organization, cell structure studies have shown that garlic can help cancer cells die off. That's what we want them to do, not proliferate around inflammation, right? We want them to just die off. The National Cancer Institute also says that garlic can induce the death of cancer cells and that garlic can reduce the rate at which cancer cells proliferate, thereby slowing the progression of cancer in the body. Now, there are some folks who talked entirely about, you know, lemon and garlic and olive oil and 100% cure cancer. I'm not sure it's that simple, really. And I wouldn't tell you to chuck everything you're doing. I would never tell you that. That's entirely between you and your doctor. But in general, all of those things have great big benefits. So back to Livestrong. In laboratory studies, garlic has killed leukemia cells, and in animal studies, garlic has killed cancer cells in the lungs, breast, stomach, esophagus, and colon, according to the American Institute for Cancer Research. So it's very, very promising. If it tastes good, right, and you can make delicious things with it very, very simply, and it may be killing off cancer cells, that seems like a bargain. It seems like working that minimum effort, you know, could really have some good payoff. The American Institute for Cancer Research also tells us that cell and animal studies have found that garlic's allyl sulfur compounds may play a role in cancer prevention by several mechanisms, including inhibiting enzymes that activate carcinogens and boosting enzymes that detox them. It can help with DNA repair and slowing growth and stimulating self-destruction of cancer cells without disturbing normal cells, which is great. Limiting cancer's ability to spread by decreasing the tumor's ability to grow new blood vessels. We like that, right? So, another big player in the Mediterranean diet is the beans and legumes family. A serving of legumes provide at least 20% of the recommended daily amount of folate and fiber. Dietary fiber can act in several ways to lower cancer risk, including helping with weight control. Excess body fat, of course, increases the risk of 8 different cancers. Gut bacteria feed on fiber, which produces compounds that may protect colon cells, and folate is essential for healthy DNA and maintaining control of cell growth. They also say that dry beans, split peas, and other legumes also contain a variety of phytochemicals that scientists are studying for their anti-cancer effects. So again, big bargain. You know, I knew somebody who would talk about lentils as like la comida de pobres, the food of poor people, and I thought, oh my God, but they're so rich in everything. What are you talking about, right? They have everything and they're filling and inexpensive. Just they go with everything. Just, here's the thing though. If you are not used to eating beans regularly, your stomach stops making the enzymes that help you digest them. Hence some of that, tutti business. So the trick is to add it in a little at a time until your stomach gets in the habit, or you can use epazote, which is a lovely herb from Mexico. You just throw a leaf or two in the pot with your beans, and it's nature's beano. Gotta like that, right? Okay, antioxidants from a variety of phytochemicals, including triterpenoids, flavonoids, inositol protease inhibitors, and sterols are all in there. I'm not going to go into each and every one of those and what they do, but just the fact that they are so loaded, right? So loaded with good stuff, and they fill your tummy and make you feel good. Lemons are another item that are fantastic in so many ways. They have the vitamin C, the antioxidants, and honestly, when you see a salad in Italy, Greece, etc., most of the time you either have just oil and vinegar or oil and lemon juice, right? It's that balance between fat and acid that makes things very lovely and tasty. Usually there's some oregano involved as well, which has its definite benefits. But for lemons, of course, vitamin C is full of, goes with antioxidants and everything, as well as supporting your immune system. Bioflavonoids help destroy harmful free radicals. Limonene is the result of, back it up. This stuff from lemons. The result of a 2001 culture study summarized in Nutrition and Cancer revealed that this compound was effective at partially inhibiting the growth of human ovarian cancer cells and inducing the death of breast cancer cells. 3 years later, in the Journal of Agriculture and Food Chemistry, researchers discovered 3 new limonoids. 2 of these limonoids significantly reduced the number and burden of induced oral cavity tumors by 25 to 50%. That's a lot of help on your side, right? Just for a squeeze of that on your salad. Oh, this isn't a lot of effort for the add-in to all the foods that can benefit your body and keep you fighting the good fight or preventing things that we definitely don't want. There are many claims of lemon oil extracts blocking cell proliferation. They may block the spread of prostate, breast, and skin cancer to other organs. This oil makes it difficult for cancer cells to break off and spread, although it has no impact on the initial tumor. Hey, we'll take all the help we can get, right? Okay, so then we have our herbs. Before we do that, let's do some more food. I want to do one more little dish with you. And this one has some of the same ingredients, but not all. This is Greek, but pretty much everybody in the Mediterranean area, including, you know, in the Turkish cooking and Armenian area, lots of people make their different versions of raita or tzatziki, depends on where you are, it's called by different names. However, it's delicious no matter where. So we're gonna again go back to our garlic, maybe not quite as much as goes in the gazpacho, and a little bit of the onion as well. And you know, on the recipe, let's just consider that those are guidelines. You know, you really have to decide yourself, like, how much onion do you like? How much is good for you? How much garlic do you like? And I really like garlic. I mean, really. And then we're going to put in a bunch of cucumber as well. Just a little over here. And this is going to go with yogurt. However, because I like not to do dairy products, we're going to use an almond-based yogurt. And I have to say, there are a lot of dairy replacement products that have zero protein at all. This actually has 5 grams per serving, which is very nice. But do take a look at that when you're thinking about what you're making. If it's essentially got nothing, consider it a condiment. You know, consider that it's not your main meal, right? Because it doesn't have, they're great for getting you to eat the healthy meal, right? Because if there's a little sprinkle of cheese on top or a little bit of something creamy to make it more appealing, you know you're going to actually eat that, right? As opposed to just like chunks of vegetables. It's definitely more inviting. But, you know, you don't want to overdo, and you don't want to think like, oh, got my protein because it's cheese-like. It's not, right? It's made out of tapioca and in some cases a bunch of different stuff. So take a good look. Almond-based is very nice because it's, you know, based in nuts as opposed to something else, so you do get that little bit of protein. So I'm just going to make a little noise here with my blender. Again, you can decide how chunky you like your raita and how smooth you would like it. I like it chunky, like a dip. So I'm not doing too much extra work here. Are you able to do that? I'm hoping that you're following along. So you can make it very, very chunky like this. And then if you have any left over, run it through the blender seriously and make it creamy. And then it's salad dressing. All right, we're going to give this a little bit of salt. And I'm going to take a little tiny bit of homegrown dill here. And this grew out in my hoop house. Just put a little bit of that there. And a little more, because I like dill. If you hate dill, you don't put it in there. Put in some parsley. That's fine too. Okay, so now we made it pretty. I'm going to actually give you a sort of serving suggestion. All right, now we can dip it with some lovely pita bread, which is really tasty, or you can just use that to dip, right? Just for finger food, because honestly, sometimes we just don't have a huge appetite when it's hot out. Not only don't we feel like cooking, we don't feel too much like eating. So if you could just be dipping away and you don't even notice that you're eating nice vegetables that are hydrating and full of benefits, then you won't have to worry about an appetite. Just nibble, nibble. The other thing you could do, though, is mash up a few garbanzo beans inside half a pita, right? And then tuck in your raita and maybe some fresh tomatoes and lettuce. Good to go. How's that? This stuff is great. It's refreshing. You're going to keep it cool. I would definitely leave it in the fridge for a little bit before serving so those flavors get to know each other again. But just pop it right in, just scoop your stuff, and it's absolutely delicious and fresh and just what you need in the summer. So now you have 2 meals taken care of, and you haven't even turned on the stove, right? So one last thing here we're going to get to. I would like to talk a tiny bit about some of the herbs that folks are using in Mediterranean cooking, some of my favorites. Rosemary is huge. It's anti-inflammatory and it has antioxidant properties as well. In some places, they consider that if someone leaves a sprig of rosemary like under your bed, it's a curse. But if you put it in your own house, it keeps curses away. So there's that, and but it's also got some of the same things that pine has. Terpenols, I believe the phytonutrient is called, and it's very good for fighting things like vitamin C, or a cold like vitamin C. Sorry, you don't want to fight vitamin C. Basil has anti-inflammatory, antibacterial properties as well as vitamin A. In Ayurvedic medicine, they talk about basil being a lifting and opening presence. And if you put your nose right in a big bunch of basil, you'll see that it's kind of true. It kind of clears your mind. It kind of opens you up a little bit. Besides that, it's so gorgeous. If you've never made pesto, all you need is one of these items to whiz it up. Either you can use a stick blender, you can use your little magic bullet, that's the easiest. All you really need is a bunch of garlic, a bunch of basil, some olive oil, and then you can choose your nuts. I tend to use walnuts because they don't cost 15 bucks a pound. So just toss them right in, and then I tend to use a vegan Parmesan, the more grated type, not the shaved type. And then just mix it all in your little blender, and I try to keep a small amount of that in the freezer. So when you're having a lousy day and you don't have any ideas, you really don't feel like it, you think, man, what do I have for dinner? And then you go and look in the freezer and you find basil there. Ta-da! That's really uplifting. So, and also, by the way, at that point, you're eating enough of a leafy green, so it actually counts as one of your leafy greens. Oregano is wonderful stuff. It's antibacterial. It's nutrient dense and has omega-3 fatty acids, which is really weird for an herb. I've actually used oregano oil to clean a wound. It's that antibacterial. It's very, very strong medicine in a concentrated amount. Paprika is a wonderful thing as well. The difference between Hungarian and smoked, smoked is what they would use in most of the Mediterranean, is actually smoke. They actually smoke, like cook it over a fire. It's the same pepper otherwise, but without that smoky flavor in the Hungarian version. Anyway, it's got beta carotene, of course, like all peppers. It's got lutein, which is great for your eyes, among other things. Zeaxanthin as well fights oxidative stress, which is good stuff. And then bay leaves. I love bay leaves. Put them in lentils, put them in any kind of big stew, in fideos a la cazuela. I think maybe we'll do later in the year, when it cools off a little bit, we'll do a big fideos a la cazuela. It's like noodles in a pot. It's a very shortcut way of making a big, abundant, loaded pot of noodles, and we'll give it a Catalan flavor with that bay laurel. So the good thing about bay is that it's an appetite stimulant, which we may be needing. It helps soothe your stomach, it's antibacterial, helps clear the lungs, and helps with hair loss and heart health. So it's quite a little assortment. I'm not saying that, you make one stew with one bay leaf and that's it, all your hair regrows, right? That's not exactly it. However, all of these things put together in this broad variety can do a whole lot to support your overall well-being. And that's what we're after. So, all of these nice fresh things you can get, of course, at localharvest.org. You can look for news and recipes and background about us at our site, which is producewithapurpose.net. From there you can jump to our resource pantry, which has all the recipes. And from there as well, you can go sign up to be in our newsletter so you never miss one. Excuse me. You can also find out how to support us, all about the farm, right? And you can check out what's new in seasonal produce. But most of all, we'd really like to thank you for being with us and for participating and for cooking along with us. I hope you're in tasting mode at this point. We really want you to be getting an overall abundance of fresh produce. That is our main drive here. We don't profit from it in any way. So, you know, normally if you're getting a lot of hype, you want to ask, like, follow the money, right? Just eat your vegetables, really. We just want you to take very, very good care of yourself and each other, right? And with all the things that are going on in the world, I want you to get some joy and some flavor and goodness from the food that you eat. Whether you're fighting cancer or just trying to boost your immune system to keep that pandemic away, that's, you know, more color, more joy, more flavor, more nutrition. They all go together. I don't want you to have to be on a diet or depend on anybody to tell you what to do. I want the knowledge to empower you so that you can take wonderfully good care of yourself. So thank you again for being with us. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you loved your gazpacho and your tzatziki. Don't forget to comment on Facebook and reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. And hopefully we will see you again in 2 weeks right back here for another Produce with a Purpose cook along. Stay tuned.